So I am Ebenezer Harrison, and my project title is Consumer Engagement in Real-Time Marketing on Social Media, the Role of Brand Personification, and this was under the advisory of Dr. Kwan. So when there is a viral event or there is something going on and brands tend to use those current trends to connect with consumers, we call that real-time marketing, and we see this a lot on social media. And the reason why brands will do this is to solicit engagement in the form of interaction, in comments, in likes, in shares, as a way of creating awareness and also ensuring some loyalty with customers. And in doing this, brands tend to use a lot of personification, that is trying to give the brand some human traits to make it look more human. And this is because our research has shown that individuals tend to anthropomorphize non-human agents due to the ease of making inferences about non-human agents based on self-knowledge and the reassurance of trust reposed in human agents. And two strategies that have been commonly used, or two broad categories of strategies, have been whether they are text-based or they are graphic-based. So text-based is just using figurative text, or graphic-based, either image, still images or videos. Well, the gap we found in literature is that although RTM has been studied, we know a lot of research on brand personification, we know a lot of research on social media, these have not been studied together. And also the role that brand event congruence, BEC, plays, that is the fit between, or the perceived fit between a brand's attributes and the event's attributes. And so through this research, we'll explore to see what kinds of linkages are there between these personification strategies brands use in their tweets, specifically referring to Twitter, and then the moderating role of brand event congruence. All right, so we know that consumers' evaluation of a brand can be enhanced when the brands are personified, and this has been established all throughout literature by using either the graphic or text in the forms of personal pronouns, like first person pronoun, second person, third person, or imperative verbs when the company or the brand is portrayed as actively doing something. These are all examples. But then we also thought that if these are supposed to be things that kind of portray the firm to be a human being, then there is also a possibility that firms might not only use these ways, because they could also express emotions and other things through text that might not necessarily use any of these. And so we categorize a possible sub-classification, which will be called tacit expression. And then we know the role that memory, we know that people are able to recall, and it is as a result of notes that they have formed from the experiences and events. And so we're thinking that if this also suffices, then the level of interaction that consumers are going to have with the brand would also be dependent upon the kind of perception or the notes they have about the firm pertaining to who they are. Specifically, we are looking at functional fit, whether the brand's products or services are used or can be directly used for that event or not, like maybe Super Bowl and Nike. We know that those two, because Nike can be used to play and all those things, the athletes use that, there is that functional fit. And so we're thinking that that might also inform or affect the way consumers interact with the brand in that regard. And so what we sought to answer three questions. First of all, what are the kinds of personification strategies that the brands are using on social media for RTM? And then whether these strategies influence consumer engagement, and if brand congruence, brand event congruence, or BEC moderates this relationship. So to do this, we used our software to mine data, cleaned it, and then did content analysis with human coders, and then conducted a maneuver using SPSS. So we selected 4 events among the top 10 ranked events in 2019, and then we collected the timelines of the 95 top Twitter brands, that resulted in 306,000 plus tweets, out of which we filtered because not all of them were RTM based, and none of them also used personification strategies. So after filtering, we had 506 RTM tweets to be manually coded, and so we had 2 graduate students coding based on the coding sheet developed upon literature, and then the reliability, intercoder reliability was 82.3%. After coding, we realized that Avengers Endgame, one of the events, particularly had extraordinarily large numbers that was skewing the data, so we had to delete that, and that brought the total number of tweets to 464 that were finally analyzed. So for the maneuver, we have the TBP, GBP, and BEC were the fixed factors, and we added event type as a control variable, and consumer engagement matrices like number of comments, number of favorites, and number of retweets were the dependent variables. So for the content analysis, we found that indeed brands use all the strategies, the text-based strategies, as well as the graphic-based strategies that have been listed in literature in their RTM tweets, and predominantly of them was the first person pronoun. So the firms were seen calling themselves I or ourselves or we to represent themselves, followed by imperative verbs like using calling or and urging people to do or partake in a particular activity. What surprisingly came up was also the fact that tacit expression, which is our proposed new subclassification, also tend to be the third most used by the brands. So an example is Tiffany is proud to have. Tiffany expressing pride is something specific to human beings, and so if the brand is doing that, then it is not utilizing any of those subclassifications, but it is still portraying itself as that, and that we also have for the graphic based. So for our model, we found that BEC did not have main effects on engagement. However, when we looked at the ANOVA table, we realized that only the comment was significant, or only the comment was the dependent variable that was significantly impacted by all the variables and their interactions. So although it was not, BEC did not have significant main effect, it had significant interaction effect with both TBP and GBP, as well as also the event. And specifically, we found that when the brand and the event are congruent, then the brand should use both TBP and GBP, which would elicit more engagement, or their second option is to not use either of them, or they can just go with text. Using only the graphic reduces the level of engagement. And when the brand is incongruent, then it is only advisable to use the graphic-based personification strategy and not any of the others. And these were explained by the fact that the level of processing fluency of an object is dependent upon the object's visual properties and the beholder's prior processing experience. This is according to processing fluency theory. And so we understand that since the graphic is satisfied, then the next thing is the congruence, which we can say that is the beholder's prior experience. And so when these two things are present, then there is that fluency for the user to process. But then we also realize that when it comes to the reason why when the brand is not congruent, it is only the graphic that is supposed to be used, is that ELM, elaboration likelihood model, talks about the fact that there is a central path processing and a peripheral path processing. So we believe that because the brand is not congruent, the presence of the image kind of triggers people's curiosity, which makes them use the central path of processing. But when it is just congruent, the image does not add any more effect to what the brand event congruence already does. And so it uses the peripheral path. Although we did not test the mechanism, we believe these are possible pathways that future research could research further into. And so theoretically, our research was able to expand on the brand personification literature, specifically by introducing a possibly new dimension or subclassification that has not been studied in literature to the best of our knowledge. And also it stimulates thinking about the application of processing fluency and elaboration likelihood in brand personification strategies pertaining to social media engagements, which also could be studied. And we also showed that these two theories can be applied in RTM and social media engagements. Managerially, we recommended that when brands are congruent, they should use both TBP and GBP. But if they are incongruent, they should only stick to using the graphic-based personification, as that will elicit more curiosity and more active processing from users. They should not use only GBP when the brand is congruent, because if congruence nullifies or cancels out the effect of the GBP. And so future research—
You're at time. Sorry, you're a couple minutes over already. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, though. I'm sorry to cut you off.